I should have known something was off the moment she said, "Let's do dinner. Somewhere nice." That's not how serious conversations start. That's how executions are scheduled. But like the idiot I still was back then, I threw on a button-up, shaved, even rehearsed what I'd say if she wanted to fix things. Fix things. What a joke. The second I stepped into that overpriced hellhole of white tablecloths and Instagram lighting, I felt it. Something tight in the chest. Wrong. Like walking into a wake where you're the only one who doesn't know the name of the dead. She was already at the table. Laughing. Not at a meme. Not at the waiter. At him. Chase. Donovan. The mentor she'd casually mentioned during dinners while staring past me. The guy who just gets her. The man whose name had been popping up like mold in every corner of our marriage. He wore a black shirt 2 sizes too tight, one of those narcissistic uniforms that scream, "I know my macros." He had that kind of smug, filtered smirk influencers have when they post shirtless gym selfies captioned, "Humble Grind." And her. She looked like she was auditioning for a second life. Red lipstick. Hair done. Nails I hadn't seen in weeks. Hand resting too close to his thigh. The kind of body language you only reserve for 2 types of men, your fantasy, or your next mistake. She looked up at me like I was the waiter bringing the wrong order. "Logan," she said, sugar-laced, "this is Chase. You've heard me talk about him." Oh, I'd heard. I forced a smile that probably looked more like a grimace. Under the table, my fists were already clenched so tight I could feel my pulse in my fingertips. And then he did it. He leaned forward, locked eyes like we were cowboys about to draw pistols, and said, "I'll make this simple. You've got 2 options, leave quietly, or face me like a man." Boom. Just like that. He dropped it like we were in some B-grade soap opera. Except this was real. This was my life he was speaking into like he had a script and a studio audience behind him. "Ashley." She didn't flinch. She smiled. And something inside me snapped. I leaned in close, so close I could smell his overcompensating cologne, and whispered, "You want your ego bruised, or your face?" Then I stood up and introduced his jaw to the appetizer platter. Glass shattered. Forks flew. Wine exploded across Ashley's designer dress like a crime scene from a true crime podcast. Chase tried to get up. Key word, tried. 1 punch. Years of swallowed rage. Sleepless nights. Her silence. His name. My name, forgotten. That punch wasn't just knuckle and bone. It was therapy. It was justice. Ashley screamed. Not in fear. In embarrassment. "Logan. Stop. You're embarrassing me." Embarrassing her. Her. After dragging me to a candlelit public firing squad. After handing my heart to her gym rat boy toy in a gift box with wine pairing. She called me embarrassing. Security hauled me out. Blood on my shirt. Glass in my palms. And Chase? Curled up like a toddler who lost his sippy cup, moaning on polished marble, alpha energy leaking out in little red puddles. I stood outside, breathing cold night air like it was the only clean thing left in my life. And that was when it hit me. This wasn't the beginning of betrayal. It was the final act. And I had walked in right before the curtain dropped, thinking it was a reconciliation. She used to look at me like I was made of stars. That night, she laughed at my pain over lobster bisque. But here's the thing, that night didn't destroy me. It resurrected me. Because you don't get to come back from that and be the same man. You either sink, or you burn. I burned. And when I got home, everything already felt hollow. The house looked the same, but something inside was missing. Not furniture. Not photos. The soul was gone. The second I stepped into the house, I knew something was wrong. Not in the "she moved out" kind of way. Everything was in place, too in place. The couch fluffed. The kitchen spotless. Even the hallway smelled off, like someone had tried to scrub away the truth but left the scent of a stranger behind. Her perfume was there. But it was tainted. Muted by something else. Something musky. Cheap cologne. A scent that didn't belong in our home. Didn't belong in my life. I walked to the bedroom. The bed was made. Perfect. Like a hotel. Ashley never made the bed like that, not once in 5 years. She said, "Life's too short for hospital corners." But there they were. Tight. Crisp. Tucked in like someone had something to hide. I sat down, my knuckles still raw, my head spinning. The restaurant scene played on loop in my mind, his smirk, her silence, the sound of glass hitting tile. And then my phone buzzed. One message. From her. "You didn't have to do that. You embarrassed yourself." That was it. "No, are you okay?" "No, I'm sorry." Just blame. Cold, clipped, and dripping with contempt. That was the moment the doubt stopped. The last thread of denial snapped. I didn't need a theory anymore. I needed proof. I stood up, stormed into the closet. At first glance, nothing seemed off. Her clothes were there, arranged in that lazy half-color-coded way she preferred. But then, behind her old running shoes, I saw them. Red heels. Sharp. Designer. Never worn around me. Ashley hadn't touched heels in months. Said they wrecked her back. But these? Brand new. Hidden like a crime weapon. I grabbed them. Turned them over in my hands. The soles were scuffed, barely, but enough to know they'd been worn. Not with me. Next stop, the vanity. She always left her tablet there. She never locked it. Claimed trust was sacred. What she really meant was, "You'll never look, so I don't have to hide." She was wrong. The screen lit up. And my world caved in. The first photo, her. Barely dressed. Mirror selfie. A hotel room I didn't recognize. Timestamp, last weekend. The same weekend she said she was at Lacey's baby shower in Sacramento. Swipe. There he was. Chase. Shirtless. Brushing his teeth in the background like he belonged there. I felt my breath leave me. Cold. Sharp. My hands trembled. Another swipe. And another. Videos. Voice notes. His voice, low, arrogant, possessive. "You're my little secret," he said. Her laughter. The kind I hadn't heard in years. The kind that used to be ours. She called him Daddy in one. I nearly crushed the tablet in my hand. In another message, she texted. "He still thinks we're working through stuff. Poor baby. Poor baby." That hit harder than any punch I threw that night. Because it wasn't just cheating. It was mockery. Performance. A private play I never auditioned for, but somehow starred in, as the fool. It all made sense now. The distance. The fake girls' nights. The sudden makeup. The random cold shoulders. The late-night work calls. I wasn't her husband. I was her alibi. The next morning, she walked in like nothing happened. Hair in a bun. Coffee in hand. Thumb scrolling through her phone like my world hadn't just collapsed. I was already at the kitchen table, waiting. Silent. "What?" she asked, deadpan. I didn't answer. Just slid the tablet across the table. Unlocked. Messages open. Her fingers paused mid-scroll. She glanced down, then back up at me. Her face didn't even twitch. First words out of her mouth. Why were you snooping through my stuff? Not, I'm sorry. Not, it's not what you think. Just, why were you looking? I leaned forward, voice calm but sharp. You lied. You played me. You dragged him into our marriage and treated me like I was disposable. And now I'm the bad guy for finding out. She shrugged. You've been boring, Logan. You stopped trying. I needed someone who made me feel alive. I clenched my jaw. And you chose this? A guy who talks in protein quotes and lives for gym selfies? She narrowed her eyes. At least he listens. At least he doesn't make me feel like I'm aging in a cage. That was it. The final brick. The last excuse. She didn't fall out of love. She outgrew the version of me she could no longer exploit. I stood up. Walked to the bedroom. Started packing. A duffel. Some shirts. Just the basics. She followed me down the hall. You're just going to leave. I didn't stop packing. You already left. You just forgot to say it out loud. As I passed her by, she muttered, almost under her breath. Cold. Shameless. You were never man enough for me. I didn't flinch. I didn't yell. I just walked out. Into silence. Into something that, for the first time in a long time, felt like mine. The place I moved into wasn't much. 4 walls. 1 window. Mattress on the floor. No framed memories. No floral scent sneaking in from old lives. Just blankness. Space. But for the first time in months, I could breathe. No staged smiles. No small talk with a ghost. No waiting for betrayal to kick off its heels and come home. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, not the girl I married, but the woman from the restaurant. The one who smiled while I bled. The one who sat beside another man like I was the plus one who overstayed his welcome. I heard her laugh from those messages. The syrupy way she whispered to him. Called him, baby. Said I was, soft. That I'd probably die paying someone else's mortgage. And then Chase had replied. Good. Let him. That line stuck like a fishhook in my spine. They didn't just cheat. They mocked me. Rewrote me into some sitcom character they could chuckle about between hotel sheets. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I planned. 3 days. I didn't answer her calls. Didn't open her texts. Just watched them come in. Lines like. You overreacted. Let's talk like adults. And. We need to discuss terms. Terms. Like it was a contract dispute. Like I wasn't a human being, just an outdated subscription she wanted to cancel with minimal penalties. On the 4th day, she showed up. At my door. Hair in a loose knot. No makeup. Baggy jeans. Her, I'm still the old me, costume. Can we talk? She asked, voice sugar-coated but strained. I let her in. She sat on the edge of my couch like it was a therapy chair. You've had your tantrum, she said. Now let's be realistic. I folded my arms. You burned our house down and now you want to discuss insurance claims. She exhaled hard. You're being theatrical. It wasn't working. You didn't see me anymore. I laughed. Bitter and low. I saw you every single day. I saw your effort fade. I saw you schedule distance like it was a meeting. And I tried. I asked. You lied. She rolled her eyes. Don't be dramatic. Dramatic? I stepped forward. Let's talk about the hotels. The lingerie I never saw. The man who told me to leave my own marriage while sitting in my seat. Her jaw clenched. You're acting like I committed a crime, she said, attempting to smile. No, I replied coldly. You committed character assassination. And you didn't even have the decency to hide the knife. She stood. The air around her shifted. The fake empathy evaporated. I needed more. You didn't give it. I nodded slowly. So instead of fixing it, you found fireworks and lit them on top of our foundation. She grabbed her purse. Started walking toward the door. Maybe if you'd been more of a man, you'd still have a wife. I stopped her. Quiet. Final. No. I didn't lose a wife. I lost an actress who forgot her lines and blamed the script. She turned. Eyes cold. You think you're the only one who suffered? I spent years pretending to be happy. You didn't pretend, I said. You rehearsed. You choreographed a lie and cast me as the fool. And then, the final dagger. I've been with Chase for 6 months. And you know what? I feel alive again. There it was. While I was budgeting for anniversaries, she was buying hotel sheets. While I worked overtime, she was in my car, in my bed, with him. But I didn't scream. I smiled. Good, I said. Then you don't need to hear what I did yesterday. She blinked. Her mask cracked. What do you mean? I walked over to the kitchen drawer. Pulled out a thick folder. Dropped it on the table. She flinched like it was wired to explode. Inside. Bank statements. Screenshots. Email threads. Hotel receipts. A credit card I was never meant to find. And, the crown jewel, a printed transcript of a conversation between her and Chase about hiding assets. She stared at it like it was glowing. Logan, she whispered, hand trembling. I didn't blink. Evidence, I said. For what? For the divorce. And for making sure your little protein model understands what happens when you mistake a quiet man for a weak one. She reached for the folder. I pulled it back. We're done. Her face paled. Her lips parted. And for the first time since this hell began, I saw it. Fear. Not regret. Not guilt. Just cold, naked fear. But it was too late. She had written the script of her betrayal. All I did, was direct the final scene. 3 days later, he showed up. Chase. Right outside my job, leaning against a black Dodge Charger like he was waiting for a camera crew. Aviator sunglasses. Designer shirt. That same smug posture, the kind that says, I lift and I lie. I almost walked past him. Logan, he called, casual. Like we were old friends bumping into each other at a reunion. I didn't stop. But I slowed. You got a second? I turned slightly. Let the silence stretch. Then, what do you want? He pushed off the car and stepped into my path. Look, man. I didn't mean for it to go down like that. Didn't mean. Like this was a fender bender and not a targeted emotional drive-by. I figured she'd break it off with you clean, he added, shrugging like a teenager caught shoplifting. You figured, I echoed. Yeah. She said you two were done. That things weren't good. I just thought. That it was open season on my life. He raised his hands like a peace offering. Look, I'm not saying I handled it right. But she chose this too. You know that. I stepped in closer. Inches from his face. She did. And so did you. So don't show up acting like a victim. You signed the contract on this wreck. He clenched his jaw. Tried to keep the tough guy act going. But his eyes darted, a flicker of doubt. A hairline fracture in the facade. She's thinking of moving in with me, he said. Like it was supposed to hurt. Perfect, I replied. She'll look fantastic next to your reflection. That one landed. I saw it in the twitch of his eyebrow. You don't scare me, Logan. I leaned in. Lowered my voice to a whisper. That's your first mistake. He stiffened. Because I'm not coming for your muscles. I'm not here to fight over her. You can keep the mess. What I am going to do is make sure every piece of wreckage she left gets laid at both of your feet, legal, financial, personal. He swallowed. See, you picked the wrong quiet man, I continued. The loud ones swing fists. The quiet ones gather evidence. Then I smiled, not wide, not friendly. Just enough to unsettle him. And I've been gathering. He didn't have a comeback. Just stood there like he was realizing for the first time, the man who walked away from the table wasn't the same one who got dragged into the restaurant warzone. I walked past him. Didn't look back. Because the real damage? That wasn't going to be done in a parking lot. Back at the rental, I sat down with my laptop. People like Ashley and Chase think betrayal is the end of the movie. That once you get caught, it fades to black, credits roll, and you move on. But for me? That was the opening act. I had a plan now. I went through everything, bank statements, joint account activity, email threads. The evidence she left behind wasn't just damning, it was sloppy. She used our shared credit card for hotel bookings, Uber rides, dinners for two. Bought Chase a watch, a luxury one, with my money. Even transferred funds to an account under her sister's name. She didn't just betray me. She financed it with my wallet. And worse? She was proud of it. That smugness, that air of untouchability, it lit a fire in me that I hadn't felt in years. Not rage. Not heartbreak. Something else. Something sharper. Purpose. Later that night, she called. I let it ring. 3 times. Then I picked up. Logan, she said. Voice softer now. Slower. Measured. What? I didn't expect you to react like this. Like a man who got ambushed in public and set on fire in his own house. I didn't mean to hurt you. No. You just didn't think I'd hit back. Silence. Then she said it, soft, tentative, like she was stepping barefoot through broken glass. He's not who I thought. Oh. I stayed silent. She continued, the cracks forming in her voice. I thought he'd be stronger. Protective. I thought. You thought he'd save you. She exhaled, shaky. I made a mistake. No, I said, flat. You made a choice. Week after week. Lie after lie. Bed after bed. This wasn't a stumble. It was choreography. Another silence. I hung up. Not out of anger. But because I'd heard everything I needed. She wasn't calling for forgiveness. She was calling because her fantasy had just collapsed, and she needed someone to catch her on the way down. But I wasn't that man anymore. I wasn't her fallback. I was her reckoning. The divorce process moved faster than I expected. Probably because, for once, Ashley realized I wasn't bluffing. My lawyer, Ed Willis, was sharp. Quietly ruthless. The kind of man who didn't waste words but knew how to turn a signature into a scalpel. We met in his office 2 days after I dropped the folder on Ashley. Ed didn't ask for drama. Just facts. And I had plenty. Bank statements. Email logs. Credit transfers. Photos. Timelines. Proof. Ed took one look and said, "We'll make this clean. But we won't make it painless." I liked that. During our first negotiation, Ashley sat across from me in a conference room that smelled like stale coffee and broken promises. She wore a navy blazer and flats, no makeup, no smile. She was trying to look professional, like this was some HR meeting, not the dismantling of a marriage. Ed slid the digital files across the table. Her expression cracked before she even opened them. Gone was the smirk. The dismissiveness. The illusion that she could spin this her way. She leafed through the evidence with shaky fingers. By the 5th page, she stopped pretending. No more tears. No fake remorse. She flipped into business mode. Started talking percentages and property rights like she hadn't spent the last 6 months rehearsing, "I love you," for someone else's benefit. I didn't say a word. Because I wasn't there to win her back. I was there to end the story. Clean. Final. Permanent. A few days after that meeting, I made one more stop. Not to Ashley. To Chase's wife. Her name was Charlotte Dalton. I'd only seen her once, in a photo on Ashley's tablet. Blonde. Warm eyes. 2 kids in her lap, smiling like they didn't know the world was about to change. I didn't show up angry. No yelling. No fireworks. I cleaned up. Wore a simple gray button-down, jeans. No edge. Just calm. I waited outside her yoga studio during her lunch break. Folder in hand. Heavy, not just from paper, but from everything it represented. She stepped outside with a green juice in one hand and a phone in the other. "Charlotte?" I asked, quiet. She paused, instantly guarded. "Yes. I'm Logan," I said. "Ashley's husband." The color drained from her face. 10 minutes later, we were sitting under an oak tree in the park across the street. I didn't talk much. Didn't editorialize. Just handed her the envelope. She opened it slowly. Page by page. Photos. Screenshots. Receipts. A trail of betrayal mapped out like a case file. At the end, a single note written in block letters. "He's been cheating on you with my wife for over a year." Charlotte read it. Then reread it. Her lips parted slightly, but no sound came out. Until the final page. "I thought I was going crazy," she whispered. "I thought it was me." I nodded. "It wasn't." She didn't cry. Not then. Just closed the folder, hugged it to her chest, and stared into the sidewalk like it might answer something. "I'm sorry," I said, standing. "But you deserve to know." I left her under that tree. Didn't look back. Didn't need to. Because in that moment, I'd done something that mattered. Not for revenge. For truth. 2 days later, Ashley showed up. At my new place. I don't know how she found it. Maybe a delivery address. Maybe she called our old bank. Or maybe she begged. Either way, there she was. Standing in the doorway, hoodie pulled over her head, dark circles under her eyes like honesty had been beating her in her sleep. I opened the door. Didn't speak. She stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. "Please," she said, voice a rasp. "Don't shut me out." She looked around the apartment like it might remember her. Like something in the air could still recognize her scent and welcome her back. It didn't. I didn't. She said, "Charlotte found out. She left. Took the kids. He's blaming me." I nodded slowly. "You did ruin someone's life." "Mine too," she whispered. "I never wanted this." "No," I said. "You wanted him. Now you have him, or what's left." She tried to smile. It collapsed halfway. "He's not answering my calls." Of course he wasn't. I gave up everything for him. "No," I corrected. "You gave up me. And now? You're just cashing the check you wrote in lipstick and hotel receipts." She reached for my hand. I stepped back. "Don't." Tears welled in her eyes. The kind that used to twist my gut. No. They just looked like water. You can't just throw away 2 years, she choked. You threw them away first. And then I handed her a second envelope. Sealed. Manila. She opened it with shaky hands. Inside, a legal complaint. Intentional infliction of emotional distress. Plus a notarized statement from her friend Tasha, the one she swore she'd been visiting during one of her fake library nights. The letter was simple. To whom it may concern, I did not see Ashley Spencer at any time between June 9th and June 14th. Any claims otherwise are false. Ashley stared at the paper like it burned. You planned this, she said, breathless. No, I replied. You did. Ashley stood in my living room like she didn't recognize the man standing across from her. She clutched that envelope like it might change weight if she stared hard enough. Like if she blinked, it would disappear and we'd go back to the version of us she kept preserved in her memory, the one where she still had power. But that version was dead. She came expecting drama. She got a verdict. This is cruel, she muttered, voice barely audible. Cruel. I echoed, stepping closer. You want to talk about cruel? I could feel it rising, not rage, not even pain, but precision. The sharpness that comes when you've stripped the emotion out and all that's left is truth. Cruel is watching your wife walk in late, smelling like wine in someone else's cologne, and forcing yourself to believe her story just to keep the illusion alive. Cruel is sitting across from a man at dinner who's been in your bed, being told to leave your life like it was never yours to begin with. Cruel is you laughing at my pain because he was worth more than I ever was. She looked away. Her shoulders curled inward. Good. Let her feel small. Let her sit in the gravity of what she'd done. And now, I said, softer, you get to be the one wondering. The one who waits for a response that never comes. She sniffled. I messed up. I know. I panicked. You were always working. I felt alone. Stop. I raised a hand. She froze mid-sentence. Don't justify it. Don't reach for the "I felt" card like it rewrites the timeline. You didn't panic. You planned. You scheduled deceit like a meeting invite. Tears welled again. But I didn't move. You said you wanted a family, I continued, and what you did was light a match to the foundation we were building. She opened her mouth. I kept going. You made me believe you still loved me. While feeding him steak with one hand and texting me, "I miss you," with the other. I didn't mean for it to get that far, she whispered. Yeah, I said. Well, it did. She sat on the edge of the couch like it still belonged to her. Like maybe the furniture would remember her and take her side. I've lost everything, she said. My friends. My job might be next. Charlotte posted everything, all the screenshots. My inbox is full of people calling me a liar, a homewrecker. I said nothing. Because what did she want? Sympathy. From the man she emotionally gutted? I didn't think it would end like this, she said finally, her voice a ghost of itself. That's because you never thought it would end, I replied. And then I dropped the final truth. You weren't just cheating on me. You were about to trap me. With a child. Her head snapped up. Eyes wide. Yeah. I knew. You were trying to get pregnant, I said. You figured if you blurred the dates just right, got me to sleep with you one more time, no one would ever question the timeline. She didn't deny it. Didn't have to. Her silence said everything. You were going to let me raise another man's child, I continued, and carry that lie for the rest of my life. You would have let me love it, protect it, provide for it, all while laughing behind my back with the guy who told me to face him like a man. She folded in on herself. Finally. Like the weight of her choices had caught up and there was no more deflecting. No more spin. I was scared, she whispered. So was I said. Every day I came home wondering if you were still mine or already his. A pause. Then, quietly. So. You're pregnant. She didn't speak. Just nodded once. I leaned back. Let it settle. And I assume you know who the father is? Tears slipped down her cheek. Another nod. Slower this time. I guess you thought about trying to sleep with me again last week. Just to blur the math. I did, she whispered. I didn't know what else to do. You could have told the truth, I said. She looked up, like that concept had never even occurred to her. I was scared, she repeated. Fear doesn't make people cowards, I said. Choices do. She hugged herself tighter. I don't even know if I want to keep it. I didn't answer. Because that decision, like everything else from this moment on, wasn't mine. I've already spoken to Ed, I said. Divorce will be finalized soon. No alimony. No child support. Whatever comes of this pregnancy, that's yours. Completely. Legally. I understand, she said softly. No, I replied. You don't. But you will. She didn't argue. Didn't beg. Just sat there, small, broken, wrapped in a hoodie that used to be mine. A hoodie that once meant warmth and comfort. Now. Just another piece of clothing wrapped around someone I didn't recognize anymore. We sat there in silence. Her on the couch, still clutching the edge like it might anchor her to something real. Me, in the chair across from her, watching, not with hate. Not even with sadness. Just, finality. She stared at the floor. Probably trying to figure out what version of the story she could spin now. What words might soften the edges. But this time. There was no narrative to twist. The truth was out. Everyone who mattered knew. Charlotte had posted the screenshots. She blurred names, sure, but it didn't take long for the people who knew to connect the dots. Friends. Co-workers. Even her family. Ashley Spencer, once the polished, smiling highlight reel of curated posts and brunch captions, now a whisper behind every closed door. Finally, she asked, "Are you going to tell my parents?" I nodded. Your parents. Your brother. Our mutual friends. Anyone who might hear half a version and think you were the one left bleeding. She flinched. You don't have to do that, she said. I don't have to, I replied. But I will. Because I knew her. She'd try to rewrite it. Turn me into the cold husband. The workaholic. The one who just stopped listening. She'd twist it into some vague emotional drift instead of what it really was, a betrayal mapped out over months. And I wasn't going to let her write that story. Not in my name. She stood, slowly. Like gravity had changed. Where should I go? I don't care, I said. You can stay here until I move out. After that? It's not my problem. She walked toward the door, dragging her feet like every step was heavier than the last. Just before she left, she turned. I did love you, Logan, she said. I met her eyes. No, I said. You loved what I gave you. What I made you feel. But when it stopped being easy, when it got boring or hard, you didn't choose us. I let that sit. You chose distraction. You chose convenience. You chose someone who told you what you wanted to hear instead of someone who'd actually built something with you. She didn't respond. She just stepped into the night. Carrying the broken pieces of a life she shattered with her own hands. I locked the door behind her. Not angrily. Just, finally. I stood there for a minute. Eyes closed. Forehead against the wood. Breathing. Not shallow, panicked gasps. Not that kind of post-fight breath. Just full, grounded, solid air. The kind you forget how to take when you've been walking on eggshells for months. That night, I slept better than I had in over a year. No perfume on the pillows. No text tone triggers. No questions circling like sharks. Just silence. Honest, earned, clean silence. The next morning, I started moving. I stacked boxes. Called the movers. Cancelled utilities. My life turned into a checklist, cold, structured, simple. And it felt good. Because with every item crossed off, I wasn't just leaving a house. I was peeling away a version of myself I no longer wanted to carry. I met with Ed again. We signed the final round of filings. He flipped through the folder, nodded in that quiet way lawyers do when they respect your restraint. When we left the courthouse, he clapped me on the shoulder and said, "You handled this cleaner than most." I didn't say much. Didn't need to. I wasn't looking for approval. I wasn't trying to win some breakup Olympics. I was just finishing what she started, on my own terms. As for Chase, he disappeared. Deleted his socials. Word was, he'd transferred to another city. Some whispered he took a leave of absence from work. Some said he was getting help. I didn't care. He wasn't the architect of my downfall. He was just the hammer she used when her hands got bored. And now, he was someone else's problem. I didn't chase revenge. I walked away from it. Because here's the thing no one tells you, when the dust settles and the yelling dies, you don't feel righteous. You feel clear. You look at what's left, the wreckage, the ashes, the silence, and you ask one simple question. What now? And if you're lucky, if you're awake enough, you stop asking that question like a victim. And start asking it like a builder. A few weeks later, life started to feel still. Not stagnant. Not stuck. Just still. I moved into a smaller place, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. No stairs. No double sinks. Just enough room for peace to stretch its legs. There's a little porch where I drink my coffee in the mornings. I sit there in silence, watching the sun rise like it's clocking in for work. And every time that first beam of light hits my face, I remind myself. She's gone. Not just physically. But from my mind. My choices. My future. The silence that used to scare me, the quiet that once felt like punishment, now feels like a gift. I started running again. Not from anything. Not toward anyone. Just running. There's something honest about putting one foot in front of the other with no destination, no audience, no lies waiting at the finish line. Just the rhythm. The breath. The sweat. I even picked up some old hobbies. Photography. Woodworking. I started volunteering at a local shelter on weekends. Turns out, helping others climb out of their own wreckage is a hell of a way to stay grounded. One night, I was walking through the grocery store, headphones in, half distracted in the frozen aisle. And I saw her. Charlotte. No yoga mat this time. Just jeans, a gray sweater, hair tied back. She spotted me before I spotted her. And when our eyes met, neither of us flinched. No awkwardness. No tension. Just recognition. We nodded, that quiet kind of nod people share when they've been to the same war and made it home in one piece. "I owe you," she said, smiling faintly. I shook my head. "No. You owed yourself." We stood there for a moment, surrounded by ice cream and frozen peas, like time was giving us a breath. We didn't talk long. Didn't need to. We both knew what had been done. And more importantly, we both knew what hadn't broken us. Before we parted ways, she looked at me and said something I'll never forget. "You know, they thought we'd fall apart. Thought we'd rage and scream and chase them into the fire. But we didn't. We got quiet. We got smart. And she was right. Pain doesn't always explode. Sometimes it just ends. Quietly. Like a storm passing in the distance. It's been over a year now. Ashley's just a name in old mail. Sometimes I still get those "Hey stranger" texts. She never leaves a voicemail. Just a soft knock on a locked door that won't open again. Not from bitterness. Just peace. I hear she moved back in with her parents for a while. Tried dating again. Didn't stick. I imagine it's hard to connect when you've spent so long performing a version of yourself that even you don't recognize anymore. And Chase? He vanished. Maybe he transferred. Maybe he's hiding. Maybe he's still flexing in front of some mirror, trying to find a reflection that feels like a man. I don't care. Because none of them matter now. Not really. I stopped needing closure. Stopped needing apologies. Some people don't deserve a final conversation. They deserve distance. Measured in miles. Years. Growth. And I gave that to both of them. Generously. People sometimes ask me now, would I ever get married again? I don't have some dramatic answer. No bitter monologue. No speech about betrayal or trust or human nature. I just smile. And say. Maybe. But I'd need to see their shadow before I believe their smile. Because I've learned something. Love isn't a grand gesture. It's not candlelit dinners, anniversary trips, or matching playlists. It's what happens when no one's watching. It's staying when things get dull. Choosing the same person even when it's inconvenient. It's doing the hard, boring, unglamorous work, over and over, and never using that work as a weapon. Ashley didn't choose wrong once. She chose wrong daily. She chose silence over conversation. Excuses over effort. Fantasy over honesty. And eventually, she chose him. She thought it was a correction. It was a collapse. The thing is, I don't hate her. I don't even wish her pain anymore. Because pain gave me clarity. She taught me what not to tolerate. What love is not. She taught me the difference between someone loving you, and someone loving how they feel because of you. And those two things. They couldn't be more different. Now, I live differently. I don't chase validation. I don't beg to be chosen. I choose myself, every damn day. I don't mean that in some cliché, Pinterest quote kind of way. I mean it like this. I no longer shrink to keep someone comfortable. I no longer explain my worth to people who haven't earned my truth. I don't stay out of fear of being alone. Because alone can be peaceful. When you're whole. My mornings are quiet now. Coffee. Porch. Light breeze. No phone lighting up with lies. Sometimes, I get texts from people I haven't heard from in months. Checking in. Saw your name pop up. I answer when it feels right. I don't owe access to anyone. I've got a small group of friends who never wavered. A therapist who helped me cut through the fog. A few routines that keep me grounded. I even started journaling. Not every day. Just when the memories scratch at the door. And when they do, I let them in. Briefly. I acknowledge the pain. I nod at the betrayal. And then I shut the door again. Because healing isn't erasing the past. It's refusing to let it narrate your future. The man I used to be, the one who walked into that restaurant hoping to fix a marriage. He's gone. And that's okay. He was soft in ways the world abused. Blind in ways that let people walk all over him with polished shoes and good intentions. But the man who walked out. The one who watched his world implode and didn't just survive, but rebuilt. That man. He's still here. And he's just getting started. The last time I saw Ashley was 3 months ago. She didn't say much. She didn't cry. She just stood there, at the edge of my new driveway, holding a box of things I forgot I owned. A hoodie. A coffee mug. A photo of us from our first apartment. She handed it to me without a word. I took it. Not because I needed any of it, but because I was ready to let it go. Every item was a chapter. And I had already closed the book. She looked thinner. Tired. Like someone who'd been running too long in the wrong direction. "Take care," she said. I nodded. And that was it. No dramatic goodbye. No final argument. Just two people on opposite sides of a story that had already ended. Since then, life has been simple. Not perfect. Not flashy. But mine. I wake up with no weight on my chest. No wondering what version of reality I'll walk into. No second guessing if a smile means safety or strategy. I work. I run. I write. I live. Some days are quiet in the best way. Others still sting. There are moments, rare now, when a song comes on, or a scent drifts by, and I remember the beginning. The good part. The version of us before the cracks. But even then, I don't get angry. I just nod to the past like an old photograph you find in a drawer, one that no longer hurts, but also no longer fits the life you've built. Because growth doesn't always look like fireworks or milestones. Sometimes it looks like routine. Like waking up on a Wednesday, sipping black coffee, and realizing you're not bracing for impact anymore. The world kept spinning. Chase. Last I heard, he moved out of state. New job. New town. New mask. Ashley. Still in the same city. Different place. I imagine she's still trying to rewrite the ending in a way that makes her look less like the villain. That's fine. Let her. I'm not in her story anymore. And she's not in mine. Sometimes, people try to wrap this kind of story in a neat little bow. They ask, "So, would you do it all over again?" And I say, absolutely. Because I didn't just survive this. I found myself in it. I learned how to hear my own voice again. How to build boundaries without guilt. How to love without losing myself in someone else's shadow. I used to think love was sacrifice. Turns out, real love doesn't require you to set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. Now, I live in light. Not the romantic kind. Not the fairy tale kind. But the kind you earn. The kind that shows up after the smoke clears and says, "You made it. And you're still standing." Because I did. And I am. And for the first time in a long time. That's more than enough.